Okay, so today I'm going to show you guys a simplified version of how to draw a face. Loomis' method can be kind of complicated, and it's not always intuitive if you're drawing a face in a larger picture. So I'm going to show you how to do it using the circle or the bowl of the head, because you can usually find, if you're looking at any picture, you can usually find the bowl in somebody's head. So we're going to start, these are the steps, and I'll show you how to do this step by step. So you don't need any tools for this. I am going to be using tools, but I'll also show you an option to do without tools. So if you're using tools, you'll need a compass and pause. So if you do decide to use tools, I recommend a compass, something with a 90-degree angle, and this could be a box that you have laying around or a CD case or anything, and a ruler, preferably one with centimeter marks, but anything with a straight edge that you can draw lines with will do. If you have none of these things, you can still do this method with estimating. So the first step is going to be, I'm going to use a very easy size reference, and I'm going to set my compass to 8 centimeters or 80 millimeters, just because that's going to be an easy way for me to divide it up. It's an easy number to divide by all the things that I'm going to have to divide this by. So I put this one on that on 0. And I set this tip to 8. Oops. So 0 and 8, and I turn it to the right size. If it's important that you use light marks to start off with. So kind of somewhere on this paper, at least that far from the top, because you want to give it hair, kind of mark, X marks the center of the bowl of the head. And then place the compass point on the center of the X and draw your circle. Lightly, don't go too heavy. Alternatively, if you do not have a compass, you can get the same thing done by marking your X point, placing this spot of your hand on that point, holding your pencil steady and turning your paper around the spot where your hand is sitting. And it's just kind of a circle. You could also take something that's round, or you can just kind of draw a circle freehand and use estimation. This doesn't have to be exact. I'm going to go back to my measured circle. So once I've measured my circle, I want you to go ahead and draw a vertical line down the middle through the spot that you marked. And extending below the circle. This doesn't have to be any particular length, just as long as it goes through the center point. Then you're going to use whatever you have handy to make a 90-degree edge. You're going to put it on top of that line, and you're going to make some sort of indication for yourself so you can draw a second line that crosses over the center line exactly in the middle of the center. Again, use light marks. Don't go too heavy with this. The second step after you've done that, so once this part is done, so this is number 1, is draw your circle. Number 2 is make your plus sign across the circle or your bullseye. Number 3 is divide the horizontal line, so the line that runs across like this, in fifths. So if I'm doing 8 centimeters, that is exactly 3.2 centimeters or 32 millimeters. So we'll mark 32, 64. I'm going to start over from 32, 64, and I know this needs to be at 98. You could also just estimate this into fifths. You can also use the pencil trick. So say, I think that's about where 1/5 is. I think that looks about like 1/5, and then take my pencil and see that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so that works. So that I'm gonna make marks where 1/5 are along this line. So I know also that that space is 1/10. That's gonna come in handy later. The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna divide this line, the part that's inside the circle, into thirds. So again, you can measure it, or you can choose to just kind of estimate it. So if I think that's about there and about there, that's what my eyeball says, I can put my pencil there, mark the bottom edge of the circle, move the pencil up, that's a little bit further, move it up again. Okay, so this is a little bit bigger than 1/3. So I'm gonna start over. I'm gonna say there, it needs to be about there. If I take that spot and carry it up there, that's about right. And then if I take that and carry it up, that's about right. So that's good for 1/3. So I don't have to measure this, I just estimated it and it worked out just fine. And then you're going to use whatever implement you have handy. Even you can use your box or a book or something like that, and just kind of use that, place it on this line, and just kind of try to get that parallel. And then use your ruler or your longer straight thing to make that line run across. It's really not important to draw the one at the top, but you want to draw the one that's below. You can also just use your eyes to estimate that that distance is the same as that, and that would also work just fine. I'm going to erase this line. We don't need this line. The one at the top is not necessary. Okay. We just want this one. Okay, and then what I also want to do, the next step is, okay, I've drawn that line, and then I also want to draw these lines down. But I want to make sure that the lines that I draw through my fifths are going to be parallel to the center line. So you don't want to actually accidentally do this where this space is bigger than this space. So, and again, you can just use your eyes and just kind of line it up. See that distance is about the same as that distance. Yep, that looks good. And I can draw my line down. And draw my line down here. And you want to extend these below the big circle. And then, so if I put it on here, I can see here that they're not lined up. They're not parallel. So if I straighten it out, that'll work. And same here. I'm actually going to use that side of the ruler because it's easy to estimate that this distance is the same. And again, you can still continue to use your 90-degree square to make those circles. So then the next thing you want to do is you want to make a circle that the center of it is this distance below the big circle. So you can just use your pencil and measure that distance, then bring it down here, put your thumb on that line and mark that spot. So that is where you're going to put your second circle. Now, you want the circle to fit in between these lines. So my center is going to be there. If I'm using a compass, I can put it on that line and then set it smaller until the second tip touches this line. And now I know I'm ready to draw that circle. Oh, and I can tell by drawing the circle that somewhere I messed up and these lines are not parallel. So something, I don't know if it's this one that's not parallel or this one that's not parallel. It looks like maybe both of them. But okay, in any case, this will work because I used the center line to make that circle. So I'm going to assume that this one's off. Okay, so now I've got the basic grid that I need to do a face. So where does the actual face go on this? So let me show you. So the easiest thing to find is the nose. The nose goes on the bottom of this big circle in between the middle two fifths. So there and there. So your nose, you start with the outsides of the nostrils, and then you can draw the insides, the curve down, and that little curve there. Obviously my nose didn't come out very straight, so I can go adjust as necessary. And later I can do my shading. There's probably less shading here in the middle than there is on the actual nostrils. And when you look at your actual reference, you can do the shading properly. In any case, this is where your nose goes. You might want to do some shading for the bowl of the nose. I'm not going to draw the bridge. We know we do the bridge with shading. This line is the line where your eyes sit. Now, depending on the age of the model, the eyes might be above this line, below this line, or right on this line. For now, for the ideal proportions of the face, I'm going to draw my eyes right on this line. So remember, you want to hold the pencil kind of far back, turn your page, and if you're doing an arch in this direction, it's good to draw it from this angle. So I'm going to draw one arch over here and one arch over here. So I have the eye sitting in this fifth and this fifth. So my corner of my eye touches the central fifth on both sides, and the outer corner touches almost the outside of the fifth. Then between this top third line and this bottom third line, so if you did make this line, that's not the end of the world. I'm going to draw a straight line down that marks the outer edge of the head. Again, if you look at your model, they might have a bulge that comes out here or a little bit below that point. The chin goes between this fifth and this fifth here at the bottom. So you can mark your chin. Oh, I forgot one thing, and that's the line that goes through the center of this big or the small circle. So again, I can eyeball it, or I can use my 90-degree straight edge and make that line there. This line is going to mark where the jawbone curves. So if I extend this a little bit further out, on this line is where the jawbone is going to curve. So I'm going to draw this point a little bit further down below. So if I finish drawing my eyes, I want this to be just below the eyes. Then from this point, you can actually extend it as far as you want. But from this point below the eyes, I'm going to start slightly curving in towards this line. So if I draw this line straight down and I mark about, let's say about 1/3 of the way in on this 5th, so I'm going to connect this point to that point. And again, this might be a little bit different for the specific face that you're drawing. So about, if I connect this line straight down, about 1/3 of the way in, that's where I'm going to take this jawline to. And then the last point is to connect it to the chin. So from this point, I'm just going to bring it into my chin. And again, depending on the model you're drawing, they might have a more square face, a more round face. And you can look at your actual reference and adjust this as needed. It looks like I should have brought my jaw in a little bit, so I'm going to change that actually. So instead of 1/3, I'm going to aim for about halfway here. So about halfway. Okay, and then I can go erase. Again, like I've said when I was teaching the Loomis method, is the jaw is a very defining feature of the face, and it's going to be slightly different for each drawing, for each person that you're drawing. So we're defining the bridge of the nose with shading. There's going to be some shading up here between the eyes. Now your lips, this line that runs through the center here is going to be somewhere on your upper lip. It might be the center line of the actual lips. It might be that your upper lip curves below this line and then goes above it. The corners of your mouth are going to be wherever your pupil winds up being, and your pupil, your iris is going to be about 1/3 the size of the actual eye, your pupil. You're going to have a lid at the top crossing over. And from that pupil, if you measure down, that's going to mark the corner of your mouth. So same on this side, corner of the mouth's about there. Actually, that looks, yeah, that's a little bit. So I want to bring this one in a little bit. I still want to try to make it kind of symmetrical. So then the center line of the mouth is going to run about here. And again, look at your reference, look at whatever it is that you're drawing to see where the actual lips are going to sit. If it's it seems like I'm drawing a man, so I'm going to give him a pretty thin upper lip. Going up, Cupid's bow, if you want to draw that. And remember, there's a little ledge where it's not visible above the lip, and lower lip. So, and of course this is not going to look very realistic unless I go shade, which I'm not going to do right now. So eye, pupil. Remember as you draw the eye that there's a tear duct that crosses in here. I'm not going to be very realistic about this, you get the idea. And there's wrinkles and bags under the eyes. This line crosses over. The circle here, for your shading purposes, will define the jawbone. So if you kind of shade a little bit inside this and this circle, you're going to wind up with a fairly well-defined jawbone. You can kind of cut in here and then down. Obviously, it's not going to be that defined. The eyebrows, shading underneath the lower lip goes here. Eyebrows start from this line about halfway down. So I like to make a circle to start my eyebrow shape, and then I like to bring it up until the top of it touches close to this corner, touches this center line of the big circle, and then we can still go make our line from the corner of the nose up to past the eye corner, and I know my eyebrow is gonna touch that line. So going up, and it curves around just before this line curves down. And again, eyebrows are going to be very differentiated depending on your reference, your model, and the expression that they're wearing. So looks like my man is a little bit unfriendly today. He looks a little unfriendly. The last thing, 2 more things I want to show you is the ear. This line where the eye is, the ear, top of the ear is on that line, and the bottom of the ear is about in line with the bottom of the nose. You can use your ruler to mark where that goes. Usually that's about there. So your ear goes between this line and this line. To draw the ear from the front, it goes a little bit up and out. It curves. Then it doesn't come straight down the face. It goes out a little bit, usually before it curves in, and then you draw the lower lobe. So it's got a little bit of a bump out here in the middle. You usually see this upper curve from the front, and sometimes you see part of this cartilagey spot and maybe part of this curve at the bottom that comes out. So again, look at your reference photo to draw that, but roughly that's what an ear looks like from the front. And then the hairline. So the height of the nose. So from the bottom of the nose to right between the eyes, if I take that up and I mark that spot, that's about, it's on that third. When we divided this line into thirds, it's on that third. That's pretty much about where the hairline usually is. It might be on your, and it kind of runs like this, then it goes in, and then it comes down. So depending on the hairstyle the person wears, again, how old and how bold they are. So that's about where your hairline goes. And then the top of the head kind of follows this curve. Again, the hair might completely be obscuring this top of the head. And you might not be able to see it at all. So, yep, if you've seen this man, he's wanted for armed robbery and assault. Okay, so some reference points for you to remember. I've actually jotted it down on this much prettier person that I drew. For this guy, the upper lip actually straddles this line that runs through the central circle. So the height of the nose is the same as the height of the forehead, which is also the same as the width of the mouth and the height of the ear. The eyes fit about 5 times into the width of the head, as we've said, and that includes the ear. The corners of the mouth are about below the pupils sometimes, and depending on if it's taken from a photo or from real life, they will appear to be below the inside of the iris instead, especially if your model has a small mouth. The center line of the mouth, if you take the space between the nose and the bottom of the chin and divide that into thirds, your center line of the mouth is going to be on a third of that usually. Sometimes you'll have to look at your actual model and kind of divide the space up in your head and do it that way. So I hope that's helpful. Please let me know if you have any more questions. This is my simplified way of drawing a head.